This river in Ogoniland, southern Nigeria, provides locals with a livelihood, but much of it is contaminated with oil. Environmental activist Celestine Akpobari has been campaigning against oil multinationals for years.
What you see in my hand here is crude oil. This is how dirty crude oil is. Nothing has changed. People still drink polluted water because there are no alternative. There is benzene, a cancer-causing carcinogen, in the water we drink in Ogoni.
Environmental disaster is part of everyday life here. Celestine Akpobari wants the oil companies and the Nigerian government to compensate local people for the toll it's taken on their health and the suffering it's caused. He's been threatened, persecuted, beaten by police and authorities, and even jailed for protesting.
Because he was asking questions about corruption. He was asking questions about oil exploration. They said, no, he's our enemy, and they have to eliminate him. And they do that quite often. And they kill quite a lot of people. Some died.
Here in Nigeria, people are fighting back. They're taking to the streets to protest against violence, corruption, and pollution. They're prepared to risk their lives for their cause, and they're not the only ones. This is a global issue. Like Celestine Akpobari, people around the world are fighting back against environmental destruction. Here, in the Peruvian rainforest, Lucila Pautrat is taking on the palm oil mafia and drug cartels. She works to protect the Amazon rainforest and the threatened indigenous people and farmers who live here. And in Romania, environmentalist Tiberio Boșutar and investigative journalist Alex Nedea are on an equally risky mission. Their work, tackling the country's timber mafia, has made them targets of criminal gangs. Back in Nigeria, conservationist and human rights activist Celestine Akpobari wants to show us the devastation caused by the oil industry here in the Niger Delta. He's not only fighting against the oil multinationals, but also corruption in his own country. It's a mission that's fraught with danger. We're accompanied by security throughout the trip. Nigeria is one of the most oil-rich countries in the world. But the cost of these riches is clearly visible in the Niger Delta, home to the Ogoni people. Oil pollution has destroyed livelihoods, as Celestine Akpobari is all too aware. We meet two fishermen. Their nets are almost empty, a yield that has to feed 2 families. Oil is a billion-dollar industry, but the people here are poor.
I live from fishing. It's all there is.
The water has made him ill. His skin is diseased.
Look at my body.
His skin problems are a result of contact with oil-contaminated water. When their nets get snarled up, the fishermen dive under the boat to disentangle them, and there aren't even any fish left to catch.
No fish there, no fish.
Many of the pipelines and drilling bits in the Niger Delta are old. Shell hasn't drilled directly in the delta for more than 25 years. The oil wells are increasingly dilapidated, and rusty pipelines easily rupture and burst.
Crude oil has destroyed all.
In 2004, a leaking Shell pipeline left the waterways near the village of Goy polluted. The contaminated area was the size of more than 100 soccer fields. Almost 20 years after the disaster, the area still hasn't recovered. Yet locals continue to bathe in the river, despite knowing the dangers lurking in the water.
This is our swimming pool. We know it's contaminated, but we still come here.
The youngsters don't have anywhere else to go. But now the people of Goi have grounds for optimism. After years of legal action against Shell, the Hague Court of Appeal ruled last year that Shell's Nigerian subsidiary is liable for the consequences of the 2004 oil spill in Goi. The UK's Supreme Court is now also allowing the other oil-contaminated communities near Goi to sue Shell in UK courts.
Several winnings in court, whether it was at The Hague or London, they are victorious. It's a victory for the people, victory for our struggle. Because every time that Shell was defeated in the court of law, it shows that what we were saying is true, that we were not just lying or making noise or blabbing.
Shell refuses to accept responsibility. The company writes that the oil spills in question occurred in communities heavily affected by oil theft, illegal refining and pipeline sabotage. Regardless of the cause of the spills, Shell Nigeria provides cleanup and renovation. However, Shell Nigeria has neither cleaned up the area nor paid any compensation to date. Despite the verdict, Shell accuses locals of having sabotaged the pipelines. The oil-contaminated area is in Ogoniland. Community leader King Okpabi is outraged.
Shell is 110% responsible for whatever, they know what they are doing. You know, it is a very deep corruption pattern that is been going on. You will see that you don't have the type of people we have here, do not have knowledge of taking crude and to do what with it. We here at home, we hope that, and I've been saying this, Shell should stop taking us from courthouses to courthouses.
Nigeria is a complex country. Conservationists like Celestine Akpobari and critics of the government aren't the only ones who have to fear for their safety. Foreign television crews are also at risk. Kidnapping, robbery and assault are commonplace, and the country has one of the highest crime rates in the world. We're accompanied by a 6-person security team that never leaves our side. Despite Nigeria's vast oil reserves, there are long lines at the gas stations. There are hardly any state-owned refineries in the country.
As you can see, we're in a queue. Want to buy food. You can see outside there's enough vehicle out there. And it's not good. They should tell the government to do something about it.
A litre of gas costs around 60 cents. Most people can't afford that, as they earn around 150 euros a month. People are angry at the government.
This is really corruption. I don't like it. I'm tired of this.
According to Transparency International, Nigeria is one of the world's most corrupt countries. The United Nations reports that life expectancy in the oil-contaminated Niger Delta has fallen by about 10 years compared to other parts of the country. Many children die before the age of 5. These are the concerns driving not only Celestine Akpobari, but also Esther Ato, the leader of the Goi women's movement.
Most people from Goi fled to other communities. Many families could no longer live here. What could they all live on? Their livelihood as fishermen and farmers was lost. There's no money for food, medicine and education for the children. People have fled because of the oil contamination.
Many went to Akwa Ibom State. Here in Iko town, 150 kilometers further east, the effects of the oil contamination are still being felt. But Father Peter Egelewa helps people get back on their feet and rebuild their lives as farmers. He too lives in constant danger, however, like many priests who campaign against corruption and oil pollution. In the last 6 months alone, 6 priests have been kidnapped or murdered in Nigeria.
If you speak out against the government, you put yourself in danger. I lived in Germany for 7 years. I visited Italy. I visited Spain and Belgium and Britain. I've seen how people live there. Here in Nigeria, we have oil, bronze, gold. But the people have seen nothing of all that God has given us. The country has a population of more than 200 million. Over 80% of people live in poverty. We priests keep on fighting and hoping for a brighter future.
Emmanuel Clinton and his family had hoped for a better life after fleeing the polluted Niger Delta 10 years ago and settling in Eco Town. Oil pollution had meant Emmanuel could no longer work as a fisherman. We visited him in his new home, which he shares with 4 children, his mother-in-law, and his heavily pregnant wife.
My life here is a little bit better than the island. The oil company destroyed all our source of living. I lost my father. I lost my uncle and 2 of my sisters because of how life was difficult.
A lot of people died. A lot of life has been lost that they cannot afford to treat themselves because they are poor. So before you get to a good medical health, you have to travel like 48 kilometers, which costs a lot of money to where you can get access to the health facility.
The Clintons now earn their living as farmers. They grow bananas and mangoes, harvesting several times a year. Fishing is no longer an option because the rivers are so contaminated.
How much money did you get for bananas, for example, 1 kilo?
A kilo should be between 450 and 500.
The equivalent of €1.20 per kilo. Emmanuel Clinton sells a few kilos each week at the market. Land farming is more profitable than fishing, but the family still can't afford windows, and there's no electricity here. They use a bucket of water behind a tin shack to wash. The only source of water is 20 meters away.
They will fetch water to bathe and to drink, and other people also fetch. So this water has been a source of help to others, not only to my family, but for the entire environment.
The water is shared by 10 families. The next morning, we accompany Emmanuel Clinton, Father Peter, and conservationist Dr. Ngoso Blessed to Edowink village. This is where Emmanuel Clinton lived before the oil spill. It's the first time he's been back since 2012.
The oil spillage that occurred that make a lot of people homeless. Some people lost their life, lost their family. You see, some people decide to live like me. I was one of them, I was affected. I have to live in my family. See?
Are you excited now?
I'm very happy to have you once again. I'm happy to be in my community.
On our way, we pass some of Shell's huge oil storage tanks. They bring back bad memories.
We've been threatened by oil producing companies, particularly Shell, when this community demonstrated against Shell. The then military president of Nigeria, retired General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, sent military troops to invade this community, destroyed all the houses, including my father's house, and they killed.
When we arrive in Edowink village, Emmanuel is given a warm welcome. He's keen to see his old home.
This is my house I left after 10 years. I'm very happy to come and see my house again. By God's special grace, I will relocate again.
His cousin lives here now. Many houses and shacks are abandoned. The people who still live here continue to drink oil-contaminated water.
This is the first stage of the water. When you get it from the tap here, it looks as if it's clean, but a few minutes later, you will see the oil coming out and floating on the surface. And this is what the people drink.
The few remaining locals live from fish they catch in the contaminated sea.
What is the price for this one?
This one will be 1,500 naira.
He spent 12 hours at sea to earn the equivalent of just €3.50, and he has a family of 6 to feed. Father Peter Egelewa is the regular visitor to the island.
There's no agriculture here, only fishing. That's why I come here. I want to give people hope for the future.
The security team is keen for us to get going. Clinton wants to stay for another few days. On the way back, we pass rusty, leaky pipelines. Young locals illegally siphon off crude oil from them. Dr. Blessed and Father Peter point out one of the many small illegal refineries on the banks of the Niger. They used to make a decent living from fishing, these two brothers tell us. Then came the oil disaster, and they no longer had a livelihood.
We take oil, the black oil, crude oil from the pipe, and we cook it. When we cook, there's 3 stages of cooking. We get the first stage is kerosene, and the second stage is fuel, and the last stage is diesel.
The fuels are distilled. They keep cooling the residual oil with water so it doesn't overheat. It gets unbearably hot, and toxic fumes fill the air.
The fire is very hot, but no helper. We don't have any helper. We don't have anybody to rescue us for that's how we cook.
A barrel this size fetches around €120, but most of it is spent on bribes to the police and the military. They're left with only €30 per barrel, Isaac explains.
We settle with police, military, army. We give them their percentage. We settle them before the creek be free for us to do the business.
We don't stay long. Our camera could attract the police and the army. The young men will be working through the night. Before we head back south to Ogoniland, Dr. Blessed wants us to see ExxonMobil's gas flaring, the practice of intentional burning of natural gas during the oil extraction process.
Even with this flaring, there's no compensation. It affects the water, it affects the soil, destroys the soil, it affects the flora and the fauna, it affects the vegetation, it affects the farmland, and the heat, again, is unbearable to the human life.
Gas flaring is a significant contributor to climate change. Despite being made illegal in the Niger Delta in 2005, companies continue to do it.
As an activist, you mobilize the local people for demonstration, they fish you out. They can block your account. They can pay illegal money into your account to say that you are doing an online fraud, you are into financial scam, you'll be arrested.
Security guards suddenly appear, even though we're not on ExxonMobil premises. We leave.
There's something I want to show you now.
Let's go.
A number of oil companies have promised to end gas flaring by 2030 and instead using the associated gas as an energy resource. But for now, the toxic practice continues unabated. Back in Ogoniland, for environmental activist Celestine Akpobari, there is only one way the oil-contaminated Niger Delta can be made livable again.
We must continue this struggle, because if we don't do it, there will be no future for Ogoni coming after us. And that's why, no matter how dangerous it is, we will continue this struggle to fight. Just like the children you saw in the creek, they have to swim, they have to drink polluted water. They see crude oil on it, but they have told you there is no alternative.
The Shell oil spill devastated Ogoniland, but the people who live here are not ready to give up hope. With their tireless campaigning, environmentalists and human rights activists are risking their lives, not only here, but around the world. According to a report by the organization Global Witness, 227 environmental activists worldwide were killed in 2020. More than ever before. They're particularly at risk in countries that have plentiful resources such as timber, oil and gold deposits. or where drug cultivation and the illegal palm oil industry are flourishing. The actual figure could be even higher. The headquarters of the Environmental Investigation Agency, EIA, are in Washington, D.C. The agency investigates environmental crimes, gathering information undercover in highly dangerous places.
The threats are growing and to some extent becoming increasingly violent. In some cases, indigenous people who defend themselves against illegal loggers and gold prospectors have been tortured and massacred. We also work with people who get threatening phone calls. Their families are threatened. They're sent messages on WhatsApp that say, "I know where your child goes to school." The murder rate is especially high in the countries bordering the Amazon rainforest. Here in Peru's Pucallpa region, illegal deforestation is a major problem. Home to a population of 2 million, Pucallpa, on the edge of the rainforest, is a hub of the illegal trade in tropical timber. Logs brought here are shipped first to Lima and from there to the rest of the world. Lucila Pautrat is fighting to put an end to environmental crime. She works for an organization called Kene, advocating for the rainforests and the indigenous people who live in them. The forest sciences engineer gives them a voice in court and isn't afraid to sue big companies. Her work has made her many enemies. She's entitled to round-the-clock police protection, but tends to go without, preferring to keep a low profile when she travels. Tomorrow she's set to take a flight over an area that's recently been illegally cleared. The goal is to gather evidence that can be used in court. But first, Lucila Pautrat wants to gather more information. The indigenous residents of the village of Santa Clara de Uchuña are concerned about their rights. A crisis meeting has been called. The village used to be surrounded by rainforest, but then a company began felling trees and planting oil palms in their place. The villagers took legal action. Since then, they've been the target of threats, says Ivan Flores.
People are coming here trying to kill us. We have to go into the forest to hide. They come to kill us, to destroy us. Not only me, but also my family. People have already been killed in villages that border our territory, including a village leader. Our lives are at risk. People have been contracted to kill us.
The crisis team is alarmed. At least 11 people have been killed here in recent years. The killers and the people they take their orders from have never been caught. Locals have no protection and fear for their lives.
We want our lives back, our environment, our nature, our rivers, our pristine streams, our flora and fauna, our animals.
Kene has taken their case to court. We head to the rainforest with Lucila Pautrat, who wants to see for herself what's happening in the village. For security reasons, the pilots are not told the route until takeoff. There could be informants everywhere. It's immediately apparent that the rainforest is disappearing. Below us are vast expanses of recently cleared areas.
Wide-scale deforestation means indigenous people no longer have wildlife to hunt. This undermines food security among the population. Fishing is also in decline because heavy machinery is polluting the rivers.
Santa Clara de Uchuña is located on a river. This is where Ivan Flores comes from, and it's where 7 people were murdered.
We're just arriving in Santa Clara.
Where the murders took place?
Yes, and where indigenous leaders are being threatened. As we can see, the entire area is surrounded by palm oil plantations.
This used to be dense rainforest. Now all that's here is an oil palm monoculture. The harvests are processed in this factory. Poltrot takes photos that can later serve as evidence in court. Oil palms as far as the eye can see. The plantations are expanding year by year.
All this used to be pristine forest. The palm oil plantations are illegal. We're losing a huge diversity of primary tropical forests for a business that is simply not sustainable. It also violates the rights not only of indigenous communities, but of all Peruvians and all of humanity, because it affects the whole planet.
Oil palm plantations are not the only threat. The cocaine mafia is expanding rapidly. There are hidden airstrips all over the region. Journalist Ivan Brehart has been researching this growing industry for years. He brings Lucila Poltrot up to date.
We know the cartels exist. We know some of them. Sinaloa in Mexico, Comando Vermelho in Brazil, several in Colombia. They each have their own zone. They're everywhere. The problem is that the Peruvian state, at least in the last 7 years, doesn't recognize there's been an increase in drug trafficking. According to official maps, it's restricted to 2 zones of the Ucayali, when in reality it's like a cancer spreading throughout the region.
Activists have long been demanding more protection from the army, but their calls mostly fall on deaf ears. Right now, they don't have any good news for the locals.
For 10 years, they have been defending their territory, their forests. But they're isolated and abandoned by the authorities. There is no justice for them. There's a culture of impunity. We support them in the legal proceedings, but it's very difficult.
Lima, Peru's capital. Protection of the rainforest and its inhabitants is enshrined in Peru's democratic constitution, but too little is done about violations of the law. Lucila Poltrot sends us to Percy Castillo, Deputy for Human Rights and People with Disability at the Ombudsman's Office of Peru. But all the so-called defender of the people can do is issue warnings.
The problem is the inaction of the state, which allows criminal activity to flourish, including murders. There is no clear framework, and businesses are able to exploit that to make profits they shouldn't be allowed to make. For example, the public prosecution doesn't even have the resources to travel to the area in question. The police have to ask us for help to fund their operations. Without money, without resources, defense is impossible.
In Lima, danger is ever present. Lucila Poltrot and her colleagues are used to getting anonymous threats. The CNE office in the city center is fitted with surveillance cameras. The organization's website has been hacked several times. CNE works together with activists who conduct undercover research on environmental crimes and human rights violations. Lucila Poltrot persuades one of the activists to tell us about his work. If he were to be recognized, his life would be in danger.
Unfortunately, Peru has become an increasingly unsafe country. With the right connections, you can pay just a few dollars to have someone followed, threatened, intimidated, or even killed. It doesn't matter who the person is. They'll look for him or her, dig up information on them, and find out, for example, if they support indigenous farmers.
Iquitos, about a 2-hour flight from Lima, is a city in the middle of the Peruvian rainforest and the base of a range of criminal activities. As usual, Lucila Pautrat is traveling without police protection. Worried about informants, she asked our camera team not to tell anyone in advance about the trip and where we're heading, which is Tamchiacu, a village on the Amazon. Here in the rainforest, logging is strictly illegal. But in 2013, a company cleared some 2,000 hectares of pristine forest. Within a short space of time, the company established a cacao plantation. In late 2020, it was ordered by the Peruvian Environmental Agency to pay a fine of $30 million and to immediately shut down the plantation and restore the forest. But nothing has happened. Cacao production continues unabated. Lucila Pautrat wants to see the lie of the land. Tamchiacu is about an hour away. The ferryman is only told at the last minute where we're heading. There could be informants here too. On our way, we pass piles of illegal tropical timber. Shortly before we arrive, Pautrat tells the camera team to be careful. The news that we're here filming will spread quickly. She's right to be cautious. Local farmers in Tamchiacu are being threatened because they're refusing to sell any of their land to the cacao company. Ruperto Vasquez is one of the farmers. Lucila Pautrat is representing him and his colleagues in court in Iquitos and Lima. They're going to meet to discuss the situation.
This sketch made by our colleagues shows the cacao plantation owned by the company Tamchiacu, along with the guardhouse and the road. And this is the farmer's land that intersects with the plantation.
The company wants to buy the land marked in red from 3 farmers, but they're digging in their heels. We make our way by tuk-tuk to the 3 plots in the rainforest. We pass by the entrance to the Tamchi cacao plantation. We would have liked to talk to someone from the company, but our interview request went unanswered. In this promotional video, Tamchi makes the cacao plantation look like a godsend. Locals can earn a living harvesting the natural product. There's no mention of the large amounts of pesticides and fertilizers used by the company. Locals take a completely different approach to the rainforest. They leave it largely untouched, only harvesting wild fruits and plants used for herbal medicine. Tamchi continues to pressure farmers to sell their plots of land. 4 of them are still holding out, but they fear for their lives.
When they see us bringing our allies here, they kick into action. They photograph and film us. They watch us, and that's unnerving. We can't work freely. In light of the complaints and threats, the police have advised us to avoid being on our own and not to spend the night here.
When I arrived one morning, there was a sign on the box over there that said, "On September 16th, anyone defying us will disappear." My wife went to Lima. And while she was gone, someone from the plantation told a villager to find a shaman to kill her. If she died, I might sell my land.
Indigenous people and farmers usually have little chance against powerful companies in a country like Peru, where state corruption is widespread. Lucila Pautrat brings their case to court and helps draw attention to them. But Tamchi has also filed lawsuits seeking to legitimize its activities.
Despite the judicial investigations and administrative procedures, the company is trying to get its plantation retroactively certified and thereby legalized. So far, it has not succeeded. There are many such cases. In Peru, more than 100,000 hectares have been deforested for palm oil cultivation, regardless of environmental regulations.
But time is running out and the threat to the rainforest's inhabitants is growing. Ombudsman for Human Rights Percy Castillo says the state is partly to blame.
There are several factors at play here. There's illegal and there's legal logging. There are insufficient controls, and corruption means it's allowed to happen. There are hardly any controls on the ground, so these activities continue unchecked. This combination of completely unchecked criminal activity, companies profiting from it, and a lack of state controls is contributing to deforestation.
Trees as far as the eye can see. The Peruvian rainforest is more than twice the size of Germany. The best way to locate illegally cleared areas is by searching the internet for satellite images. These show roads and areas that have been cleared of trees. Lucila Pautrat works closely with Peru's environmental police force, which is responsible for tackling this illegal activity. But there aren't enough officers to patrol the vast rainforest.
In total, we have 700 police officers. The environmental police work with the Directorate of Special Operations, which is responsible for securing the areas in question. We carry out important operations with it. For example, in the last 2 months, we were able to identify crimes related to logging, plants, and wildlife worth some $33 million.
That's progress, but not a game changer. Lima is a long way from the rainforest. For Lucila Pautrat, raising awareness of environmental crime is part of her job. La Voz de la Selva, the voice of the rainforest, is based in Iquitos. The private radio station has been reporting on the rainforest mafia for some time. Today, host Ruben Menza is interviewing Lucila Pautrat. Pautrat takes the opportunity to report on the latest examples of illegal logging and the murders in Santa Clara. Ruben Menza has been following the situation for many years.
I'm frustrated. I feel powerless because nothing changes. We as journalists have a responsibility to cover what's happening. We talk to people in the rainforest, in rural areas. But the authorities who could make a difference don't listen to us. It all comes down to corruption.
The outlook here in Peru is bleak. But people like Ruben Menza and Lucila Pautrat refuse to give up. Shortly after we filmed together, Lucila Pautrat tells us another 4 indigenous people have been murdered after protesting against environmental destruction. The desire for natural resources knows no bounds. Meanwhile, Peru continues to lose more and more Amazon rainforest. Lucila Pautrat is undeterred.
There are many threats, but I'm used to it. I've been doing this work for 20 years and I'm very aware of the risks and the problems. At this point in my life, I'm not afraid.
But Pautrat would like to see more support from the wealthy industrialized nations where most illegally extracted raw materials end up. The Environmental Investigation Agency in Washington tracks environmental crimes.
Wenn Produkte wie
Once products like wood, palm oil and cocoa end up in our supermarkets, there's no sign of the damage incurred by their production. It's whitewashed by international trade and markets. What needs to happen is that supply chains need to be made transparent so we can trace the provenance of these products.
Here in Romania, illegal logging also occurs on a large scale. The Apuseni Mountains in the Western Carpathians. Investigative journalist Alex Nedea is conducting research in Europe's last virgin forests. According to the Romanian Forest Administration, 40,000 cubic meters of wood have disappeared in this area in the last 10 years.
This disaster could not happen without anyone from any Romanian authorities to notice. We are talking about several thousand of trucks fully loaded with illegal wood, which came out from the forest and no one noticed it. This is impossible.
For more than 10 years, the journalist has been reporting on the activities of the timber mafia. It's dangerous work.
I have been threatened, I have been beaten, I have been sequestrated, and that is because we try to show the real face of mafia.
This video reveals how dangerous this kind of investigative work can be.
Why did you pull in front of my car? This is a public road.
Why are you filming the timber?
We are on a public road here. I'm a journalist, and I'm allowed to film here.
Get lost.
Alex Nedea and environmental activist Tiberio Boshutar encounter this kind of hostility all the time. Boshutar uses surveillance cameras to collect evidence. He can then go to a special website to check whether there are transport permits for the timber trucks that drive by. In the last 6 years, he's been able to prove that thousands of timber transports were illegal.
The reaction of the police was drastic. I've never been treated so badly. I've even been attacked by foresters. The problems start with the authorities. The police accused me of harassment, and I had to pay a fine.
The timber mafia doesn't like investigative journalists. It took its revenge on Tiberio Boshutar, as this video shows. Alex Nedea has seen the footage.
Come on, get undressed. What are you doing here? Get the hell out of here.
It's not okay what you're doing.
A clear case of intimidation. Major foreign timber companies have been in on the action for some time, including the Austrian HS Timber Group, formerly known as Holzindustrie Schweighofer. In 2015, it was investigated for organized crime, money laundering and tax evasion.
We're not there for the harvesting. We don't harvest the wood ourselves. We work exclusively with controlled suppliers. We supervise these suppliers not only on paper but also on site. My team, which consists of 10 people in Romania alone, are trained forest scientists who actually go to the forest to supervise the supply and carry out on-site controls.
Just 10 inspectors monitoring logging across several thousand square kilometers of forest. Is that really enough to rule out illegal practices?
It's not ideal. Our vision is that at some point it will be possible to track the timber from the harvest to its final destination.
Until then, the timber mafia will continue. Logging is officially controlled by the National Forest Administration, but Tiberio Boshutar says that's part of the problem.
In Romania, the problems start here with the Forest Administration, because there are people in the sector who support all the corruption that goes on there.
That same evening, he drives to a large timber yard owned by the mafia. It's deep in the Carpathian Mountains. Hundreds of cubic meters of wood are stored here, including timber from protected primary forests.
Even if you have reliable information about the timber, the police could be collaborating with the timber mafia. It's corrupt.
The next morning, near the city of Câmpulung Moldovenesc in northern Romania. Together with Tiberio Boșutar, investigative journalist Alex Nedea and former forester George are heading into the hills. Large ruts on the path and damaged trees indicate that heavy equipment has been used here. The team find trees that have been illegally chopped down everywhere.
All trees that have been cut down are given a number once they reach a height of 1.30 meters. If there's no number, the tree was chopped down illegally. This one doesn't have an inventory number. There is nothing on the trunk. Illegal.
He calls the police.
How can we help?
My name's Tiberio Boșutar, and I would like to report illegal logging.
Where?
The outskirts of Câmpulung.
He'd observed large amounts of timber being transported from this section of the forest a few weeks earlier. According to the Forest Administration, the transport of only small amounts had been approved. Former forester George knows how the timber mafia works.
I quit my job because I didn't want to be associated with illegal criminal acts. I was afraid of being accused too, because a lot of people were involved with illegal logging. That's why I went to Germany to work legally as a field worker.
Eventually, the police arrive. They document what the team have found. The information will be forwarded to the authority that deals with environmental crime.
The logging mafia in Romania is huge. I left it. But after that, I was bullied and harassed. They even set my house on fire.
A video documents the fire. George is convinced that the timber mafia was behind it. Tiberio Boșutar has called the forester responsible for the area. When he arrives, he shows him what he's found.
Look, there's no marker, no inventory number on the tree trunk at 1.30 meters.
That means the tree was felled illegally. Shouldn't the forester have noticed?
The foresters aren't the ones responsible for illegal logging. The companies that do it are responsible. I don't know anything about illegal logging. I'm not aware of it.
The forester denies any knowledge of illegal logging. But Tiberio Boșutar is convinced he's in cahoots with the Forest Administration.
Preventing this kind of catastrophic deforestation is hard, because the whole Forest Administration is involved. I know for a fact that the forester's brother is an engineer employed by the Forest Administration.
Together with investigative journalist Alex Nedea, he continues his journey north. They meet with two brothers who were beaten up when they stood up to the timber mafia.
12 to 15 people attacked us. We were both in hospital, in a lot of pain. In the photos, you can see our many injuries on the head and arms. They left us with lacerations and bruises.
Dumitru and Ili own several fish ponds. When the pond's water supply silted up because of all the illegal logging, they threatened to file a complaint against the timber mafia. They paid a high price.
One day, when we went to our ponds, we found a 5-liter barrel of antifreeze lying next to it, empty. The fish in our ponds had been poisoned.
Only a small part of their fish farm survived. To date, the Public Prosecutor's Office has not responded to the brothers' complaint against the suspected perpetrators. According to the National Institute for Research and Development in Forestry, some 20 million cubic meters of wood are illegally logged every year in violation of EU directives. An infringement procedure has been initiated against Romania. Member of the European Parliament, Viola von Kramon, says it's high time.
What's been going on here for decades is an ecological disaster. In my view, the EU should have threatened the Romanian government much earlier, much more decisively and more clearly, including with financial sanctions. It should have been clear that if the commitment for the protection of Natura 2000 sites is not respected, then funds will also be withheld.
Alex Nadea's research shows that 250,000 cubic meters of wood were stolen in the Apuseni Mountains in the last 15 years.
I hope that in the future, my generation and the younger generation of Romanians will manage to stop this disaster happens in our mountains.
People like Alex Nadea and Tiberio Boshutar in Romania, Lucila Pautrat in Peru and Celestine Akpobari in Nigeria are doing what they can to prevent such disasters. They're fighting to protect the planet.